Hello, I'm Jesse Marsch, coach of Red Bull Salzburg, and I'm here to answer questions for Ask the Coach. When I was a player, I liked to play possession football. And as I started coaching, I realized that the future of the game was more in playing in transition. And I was lucky enough in my career, after a few years, to meet a man named Ralf Rangnick with RB Leipzig. And he introduced to me a lot of football details that taught me a little bit more how to be really efficient and functional at playing in both offensive and defensive transition. And so when I first met him and we started talking about football, it really inspired me and sparked, I think, inspiration in me to play the way that we play now with Red Bull Salzburg. I met Ralf Rangnick in 2015 when I took the job at New York Red Bulls. I flew to Doha to watch RB Leipzig and Red Bull Salzburg at that time train, and sat with Ralf Rangnick and a mentor of his named Helmut Gross. And we spent one full day talking about football, watching training, looking at tactics, thinking about the way that he had developed a style of play and how it might fit in New York. And so then fast forward 3.5 years after that time we spent together, I'd been with New York for that time, and the opportunity came to be on his staff in Leipzig. And it was a great opportunity. I knew a lot about the team there in Leipzig and the players. I had a lot more to learn about the league and the culture of football in Germany. But, we really enjoyed working with each other. We really enjoyed the work together to try to push that team and that group of players to take the next steps. RB Leipzig is such a young club, and it's such a unique story in world football. So they had made the Champions League one time. They had come up from the 4th division all the way to Champions League. And then they had missed out on Champions League, and we had to play in European qualifiers. But the work that we did together in 2018 and 2019, I'm really proud of. It was the first time the club made it to the DFB Pokal Finale, and we qualified for Champions League again, finished 3rd in the league. So yeah, we had a lot of fun together, and it was an incredible team that we had the chance to work with. And I think it really laid a foundation for the team to continue to do well under Julian Nagelsmann this year. And it's been fun to watch them from afar. Honestly, it's not easy for American coaches in Europe. We saw it with Bob Bradley, and my acclimation hasn't been so difficult, partly because I'm within the Red Bull family. The first obstacle for all American coaches is achieving the pro license. And that's not so easy to find. You need to find sponsorships. I was able to get mine through Scotland and some relationships that I've had with some clubs in Scotland. And then, for me, I've worked hard at learning the way that European football works, understanding a new language, understanding a new culture, and really trying to adapt in every way possible to show that I care about the way that things are done in Germany and in Austria. I think that has meant that people have embraced me the right way, both within the club at RB Leipzig and here at Red Bull Salzburg, but also outside and from a fan perspective. And I think that maybe that winds up being as important as anything is proving yourself to the culture of fans and football here in Europe and in different countries. So, pedigree matters. So I think that I've worked hard at the acclimation and trying to show that I care about the culture of football here, and that also is part of the fun. Really, it's passion, it's love of the game, it's history to clubs. understanding all that is vital. And so, yeah, it's not always been easy, but it's been a lot of fun. Learning a foreign language isn't easy. Working in a foreign language is even tougher. But I'm committed to it. It's a labor of love. I'll say that. And a lot of the kind of football details that we use are unique to using them in the German language. So it actually helps in some ways to talk about football in German with our ideas and vocabulary. But, creating relationships and now working on a 1v1 basis sometimes with players isn't the easiest. But, I find that there's so much more than just what you say. It's your body language, how you say it, the empathy that you can show to people. And that winds up being maybe even more important than me understanding exactly how to use the language in a way that fits within the culture. So, but I will say also, learning German has helped me understand the differences between Germans and Austrians and East Germans, West Germans, people from Vienna, people from Salzburg. It's really helped me integrate myself the right way. So it's been important for me. And again, it's almost nice to have, when the 2 times, 3 times a week that I spend an hour and a half learning German, I don't think about football at all. So it's almost a nice little break. It's they say in German, anstrengend, which means it's hard work. Those hour and a half German sessions, but they're great. They're great and valuable. In Germany, it's like this in Austria too, but in Germany, they value their culture and language so much. So you almost have to learn. So when players come from other places, in Germany, it's obligatory to take the classes. In Austria, it's a little bit more encouraged, and I find that actually, if it's more encouraged and not mandatory, then the players wind up actually applying themselves to it more. We had Minamino, or we have some Korean players. When we can speak German with each other, it's a really cool feeling to be able to communicate so fluidly in where we're both speaking another language. And then, I can always speak English with guys. We have some guys that are native English speakers from Africa or from different places. And then most guys understand English, but with the team, we always try to speak German. And I think it's a good place to start from a common communication standpoint. It's not so easy over a call to map out exactly what we do tactically with how we play. But I will say there are some pressing triggers, and there are certainly a lot of tactical details that are oriented around what we try to do when we're playing against the ball. But one of maybe the most important things is that whatever we do, we really focus on how the 11 players on the field operate in a unit. And certainly when we press, one of the keys is if when one player goes to attack the ball and they can trust that everyone else is coming with them, then that frees them up to be aggressive. And I think that's one of the key elements is the aggressiveness of what we do. But if one player goes and he doesn't trust that everyone's with him, and then he can be exposed and feel like he's on an island, then after a while he'll stop pressing and he won't be so aggressive. So, the power is in numbers. The power is in the organization of what we do. And then certainly when we win balls, we say a lot. We don't just press to win the ball, we press to score goals. So, then the movements and ideas of what happens once we win the ball and how direct and vertical we can play to go to goal wind up being really, really important. So, maybe in another coach's voice session, we can go to the tactical board a little bit more and talk about some of the details. But certainly there's a mentality and a trust behind tactically what we do. And the more that we work through that and iron out the details, then the more aggressive the players feel. We had a lot of fun in Salzburg with Erling Haaland. He was 19 when I first came to Salzburg in the summer of 2019. We weren't even sure that he was going to be a starter, but we felt that he could be a big asset for the team moving forward. Shortly after working with him and getting to know him better and better, I realized that, the potential was massive. And, the things that I say about him is that first, if you start from a pure physical standpoint, from his speed, his strength, his power, his ability to go in 1-2 steps to top speed, and then, along with this technical ability and finishing ability and football intelligence, you right away would put him in the top echelon of players in the world, just because physically he can command a game in amazing ways. And we saw that over and over again in Salzburg, and we're seeing it now in Dortmund as well. But really what makes him special, I think, is his personality. The way he shows up every day, he has such a big smile on his face. He's got energy. He can't wait to train. He's excited about every little detail of what we do in training. He leaves everything on the pitch every day. And then he was often one of the first guys to come to training and one of the last to leave, and would often come back again later in the afternoon to do regeneration in our pools and tubs, and do little things with our physios and in the gym to make sure that he was healthy and physically on top of his game. So, he's got a magnetic personality and one that's driven to figure out how to continue to get better and be the best that he can be. So, you could go to a man from the players in the team or throughout the club, and you could say that every person that worked with Erling Haaland here in Salzburg is now an Erling fan, and that we watch him and we root for him. We're proud of him. It's not always easy to see these talents leave our club, but the pride that we have to have worked with them, to have had an impact on their careers, and to see them flourish and blossom and continue to grow is something that we cherish here in Salzburg. So, Erling's going to continue to get better. He's so young still, and we're all really excited to watch that continue to happen in his career. There's a lot of talk in football about what's plan B, what's plan C. Certainly, as coaches, we all try to build intricacies into the way we do things and the way we play. That can happen in so many different ways. What you do with set pieces, what you do with defensive ideas, what you do with ideas with the ball, what you do in transition. How you can use formations and tactics to manipulate games and teams. So, I don't use it so much to describe what is plan A and what is plan B. I look at it as, how do we have a clear philosophy? And I call it a plan. What is our plan? And then how do we use our way of playing and our way of thinking to manipulate a game to be played in the ways that we want it to be played, not in the way that the opponent wants it to be played. And the better we can be at that, using all of the things that I talked about, then the more success we can usually have. So for me, there's always layers of what you do with the team. When I first come into a new team, I try to implement some basic ideas for what we want to do in all the phases of the game. And then the better that we get at mastering some of those phases, the more intricacy you can add as you continue to build throughout a season. So a great example here in Salzburg is up to the Christmas break, we used 9 different formations, and we used that to try to manipulate the game in whatever way we felt was necessary. If we were ahead, if we were behind, what different opponents were presenting, what the different levels of our league or Champions League or in the Cup, what we see at different moments. So, I try to not be too cute with how we do things, but I try to be flexible and create flexibility within our team and our players so that they can continue to understand what we're trying to achieve with the way we play. So that's a lot of the fun, I think, for a coach and for our team. We went to Liverpool with a very specific match plan, and 25 minutes into the game, the biggest thing is we were really struggling to get around Fabinho. So we went down 2-0. Part of it was our lack of aggression and maybe the fact that playing at that level in that stadium against that opponent on a Champions League night was a big step for us. But we also felt that we needed to try to shift a few things to make it a little bit more difficult for Fabinho to find the ball and start to really pull us apart. So we switched from 2 6s deep in the midfield, and we played in a diamond against the ball, and that put Taki Minamino closer to Fabinho, so he wasn't able to find the ball in possession as much, and then we were able to push the game a little bit more in our favor. Now, that being said, at 2-0 when we switched, we went down another goal to go down 3-0. But you could still feel that the tactical change we made was going to help the game. We scored a goal right before half. That wound up being really important. And then, I think a lot of people saw what we talked about at halftime. And we wanted to make sure that our team went out and was brave and used the new tactical formation to be aggressive. And within the first 15 minutes, we were able to get 2 goals and then even the game up. And then, we were a little bit unfortunate at the end not to find a way to get the result. But that little shift, I think, helped us cover more spaces on the field and make it a little bit more difficult for Liverpool to make big switches in the game, which, this was a big part of the scouting details, where they're so good at switching the ball and their 2 outside backs are so aggressive. I think it helped. And then, I really was proud of our team, the way that we played braver. We with the ball, we had more courage. We were more aggressive, and we went after the game. So I think in the biggest games, that's always the key. Is there's tactical details, but then there's also the ability for a group of players to play with confidence and really go after it. I don't really have one, and I've played with different teams in different ways, mostly based on what the personnel is. And that's, I think, the key is figuring out how to use the players in a way that benefits them individually and then thus the team. So I think it's really important that we create tactical flexibility within the style of play we have, so that, like we talked about with Liverpool, when we need to, we can shift the game in certain ways and cover spaces a little bit more, both without the ball and with the ball. So that winds up, the flexibility winds up being more important for me than the actual, what formation we use on any particular moment. Sometimes I get asked, what are the disadvantages of our aggressiveness? And clearly, any style has its drawbacks. We sometimes, because we play so high and we leave space behind, that teams try to catch us on the counterattack. I think that's normal for almost any team that plays aggressively, whether with possession or without. Sometimes teams try big switches, and so for us, we like to play the game compact. And so always trying to figure out ways how to cover the whole field winds up being a challenge for us. But I say often that this way of football is not just a style of play, it's a way of life. And, I feel always more comfortable being the aggressor as being, the one that's having aggression put on. So I say aggressive is better than passive, and that's the way I like to live life. So it can look a little risky at times, and it can feel like you can be exposed at different moments. But again, I think that there's a contagiousness, an infectiousness to the way we play, and I feel when you sense that you're overwhelming a team, when you can feel the power of being aggressive, it's something that I think people are drawn to. So. Again, it's a way of life. MLS has grown so much over the years, and it's a much different league in terms of the fan support, the passion, the culture behind the league and the clubs than it was, 20 years ago. But there's still some big differences between how the game operates here in Europe and how it operates back home in the US. And the biggest one is the history, the passion, and the culture behind the support in the teams. And I learned that certainly firsthand in Germany. One of the beautiful things about being in the German Bundesliga is the fan culture, I think, is second to none. And, there's so much history to the clubs. Most of them are over 100 years old. Some of them were started by blue collar workers, or some of them were started by, whatever, old historical clubs. And the fans, they really stick to this idea of the identity of what the club is. We have that here in Austria too. So, we're still a young sport in the US, and I'm certainly so proud. I mean, I'm MLS made, so I'm certainly so proud of that league and how far it's come. And I think it has a big future. And the more that I think it will continue to be ingrained into the fabric of the cultures of the cities and the people that are the fans and those types of things, then the more the league will grow. So, but that's been really important for me to understand coming here, is that it's not just a job where you're a coach of a team, but you're a representative of a group of people, of a culture, of a city, often a country. And the more that you can understand that and appreciate that, I think the more you can do the job effectively. That's been a big key for me. That's the main reason why I've really tried to learn the language. I've been asked a lot about my long-term goals, and honestly, I've learned in this business that you have to live in the moment, that you have to appreciate what you have, that you have to work hard to make sure that you're honoring the job you do. And the more that you do that effectively, then the more that I think people notice and appreciate the work that's done, and then the more possibilities and opportunities can arise in the future. But truly, this is, sometimes I have to pinch myself because this job is fantastic. Being a coach is a wonderful thing. Working with young players and good players on a professional level is a real privilege. And so, I try not to let pressure get too much to be a part of what we do in our work days and in the daily routine. I try to focus on making sure that our players show up with energy and enjoy the environment that we've created, that they enjoy training, that they show passion towards each other and toward the project every day. And that we have a trainer, staff, and a coaching team that does all these things the same way. And the more that we do that, then I think that we breed success. So, yeah, I mean, this is again, it's a life philosophy more than a football philosophy. And I think that that's the part that really drives me is people, is enjoying the ride, is appreciating the moment. And then, whatever happens in a year, 5 years, 10 years, I can always look back and say, you know what, I did it the right way. I lived it the right way. I was true to myself. I enjoyed the people I worked with. I enjoyed the relationships I had. And again, the more that I can feel like that, the more it empowers me to know that we're doing things in the moment the right way, and that there's some fun things around the corner. So that's what I try to stick to.